Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I've had a cracking morning. I'm a little bit late for lunch, 40 minutes late for lunch, but I want to show you something cool. This here is my first ever foray into Windows Form and .NET Core 3, and it is effectively a MassTransit test harness. So it will allow you, without having to go through the pain of going through Azure Service Bus Explorer and like having a look at all of the detailed messages, which is just horrendous. Like, it's possible to put messages on the bus here, but it's a lot easier. Like, if you've already got a message that's errored, this is how you manage it. It's great, brilliant at that. But if you want to just put on a new message, it's a pain in the ass. You've got to like set up all the properties and put it into a nice MassTransit envelope, all of this stuff. So what I've done is I've generated this harness thing. Let me just minimize everything so I can show you what this bad boy looks like. So here we go then, boys. Let's get rid of that lovely GoPro distortion as well. This drop down here is a big old list of all of the different queues you've got. So this is a legitimate queue name, and it's querying literally all of the queues to find that. And then you've got namespace and type. So if I just pull up this notepad here, if I was to put in my type, which bear with me as I copy and paste this in, put in the type, and it populates all of the information that it needs to do in here. So it puts it into the message type. You can't see that, can you? Puts it into the message type and puts it into the destination address. Happy days. So there you go, look, it's all there. Now you put in the type of the message itself, which in my case is a register test candidate command. Bang. Now I've got my register test candidate command in. Further along here, you'll see it's on the end. It just whacks on there. Nothing big and clever about that. What is kind of cool is, at the moment, the message is null. I don't like that, actually. It shouldn't be null. I'll fix that. But if you were to put an invalid JSON in here, it tells you it's invalid, and it won't let you send it either. It's not, you can't publish at the moment. However, if you put valid JSON in, you can now publish it. You see, I can't see what you can see now because the screen's turned off. Cool. So this is like actively validating your JSON, and also, so now like if I went to hello, it's telling me it's invalid. And then if I was to go like this and put in an actual value here, it spreads it all out, makes it nice and easy. This can obviously be copy and pasted out, or you can click publish and it will publish it onto the message bus. That is so clutch. Like, the code behind it isn't particularly pretty, but it's like, it'll do for now. I didn't want to spend forever working on this. I just wanted to get to the point where I could put messages on the bus. Because I have to integrate with a lot of third-party stuff, I just want to circumnavigate that stuff and just be able to put the message on myself. So all I need to do is generate the payload in the left-hand side to make it look all JSON-y, and then I just need to smash it through on the other thing. It's great. Oh my god, clutch. That is going to come in clutch, man. It's going to save me so much time. But it's lunchtime. It's 20 to 1. I've normally finished lunch by now, but I was just getting into it. I'm like, I need to make sure this works. So I ran it, made sure it worked. There was one header I was missing that MassTransit needed to be able to get the values out properly. And then boom, we're there. I made one of these a long time ago for, I made one of these. We used to have one at my job, my previous job, which Dibsy made. And it was really good, but it was an N-Service bus. An N-Service bus is a little bit, so he had one that worked with N-Service bus. I made one that was an MVC app, which is a bit gross. Oh yeah, you can just run this from the command line as well, just by doing .NET run. He did it as, I did it as an MVC app, which spoke to RabbitMQ. And now this one is one that talks to Azure Service Bus, which is the one that I use. And it's great. I'm well chuffed with that. That's like the kind of thing you just kind of throw together. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like a utility. It's really fun making utilities every now and again. Oh, the sun is starting to burn around, and it is warm AF. I'm gonna take my, well, I'm making a cup of tea, but I'm gonna have to take off my hoodie or something. I'm trying to figure out if I actually might come sit downstairs and do some planning on my laptop, because that's what's kind of next. So I have merged that tool. That tool is now like fully merged in, ready to rock and roll, and I have merged the user story that I was integrating these test candidates in. I now have two things I need to do. I need to integrate it with the pipelines, and I need to integrate it with the individual versions of those test candidates. So that's two big old chunks, and like of just finicky integration work, which need to be done next. I need to do some planning, And then I need to do the generation of test runs. It's going well. I think I'm slightly behind schedule. What's the date today? 26th. Yeah, I am a bit behind schedule on what I wanted to get done by the end of this month. But we're not too far off. I think I underestimated how complicated some of this integration work is. Like gluing together these two life cycles and whatnot was more complicated than I thought it would be. But yeah, now I've got this test harness, it should be really good. I've genuinely seen some really janky shit that people have instead of that. Like, you either have a test harness like that, which is preferable, or people like add HTTP endpoints to their consumers just so that they can like post something to it, which then turns into a message, and then it like puts its own message on the bus, that kind of thing. And it's like, it's pretty jank. That's what they had at my last place. Oof, God, that was filthy. Or you just like hand crank these things through, or you go back to like the soonest bit you can get to, then kick it off from there. Ugh. Anyway, but yeah, it's going well. Like I say, it's a bit warm. I feel like I should be doing something other than programming, but I need to do programming to make sure that I stay focused and stay productive, because I had such an unproductive past couple of weeks, and yesterday was unproductive. I've like had really stops and starts of productivity. I need to make sure that I stay productive, and I feel like I'm gonna, while I have my cup of tea, I'm gonna do a bit of planning, come downstairs a bit where it's a bit cooler, planning, then go upstairs and carry on doing programming, because I know that I can maintain productivity when I'm doing programming, and then I'll do something else if I get bored of that, rather than like kind of forcing myself to do something else when I'm not necessarily bored, and then therefore knocking my productivity down, you know? I went for my afternoon commute half an hour earlier than normal, and I've just got back because it's half an hour, and it's absolutely tipping it down. I got wet, like, see, kind of, as I was walking down the road, so banging. I timed that goddamn perfectly. Cool, so I've got the planning all sorted. Yeah, I'm entering that world again, where, I don't know if you remember, a couple of days ago, maybe last week, I was getting lost about pipeline state and like how to manage that. Re-entering that world, but I feel like I've framed the conversation better this time. So the worst kind of rain is hot rain, you know? Like it's still really warm in here. So I've been just mapped out like all of my Saga states. I've definitely simplified this problem. It's really interesting as well because like there's that's still not quite dark enough yet. There still is like, there's an interesting blend of things that I'm doing now. I'm doing these things now. It seems kind of a bit dumb to be like, oh, I'm going to separate that out. There's now 3 levels, there's a subject candidate version. So there's like, well, run, I guess. It feels like a bit noddy to kind of have one thing take a message, do very minimal calculations on what that message means, and then publish out another message. But when I later go on to like add in versioning and all that kind of stuff, it's going to be so nice. But, right, cool. Mapped out. I've put up these whiteboards and haven't even used them yet. Just knowing they're there makes me think better, you know? Also, Spotify has now added like an on-repeat playlist, which are like the songs you can't get enough of right now, and fuck me, is it good. Like, it's such a good idea, because I have like 3 albums or whatever, 3 playlists, albums or playlists I listen to all the time, and it's basically just glues them all together without me having to. Damn, there's some belters in here, and then there's like the odd Jamie Cullum song, just like in the middle, just like that. That's a bit of a pace change, but otherwise. It is the next day. Saga generation is done. So I've integrated all the sagas together. I just need the sagas now. I need to do the command handler to replicate the data in the database, in the normal database, not the Saga database. At least go well. We had like quite a productive evening and whatnot yesterday. So today we should be able to get that done, to be honest with you, most likely. And then we can move on to integrating the snapshots in. And then once we've got the snapshots in, we can run them. which is going to be interesting. But yeah, to be honest, I have kind of dropped back on everything else, like I say. But yeah, I think we've got a chance, boys. Is it bad that I've already put pajamas on? I've started to get lazy about, like, I just feel uncomfortable with sitting wearing jeans. Why don't I just get comfy, put gym bottoms on, you know? I need trousers that I can wear around the house that aren't jeans, you know? Like, but I'd rather wear pajama bottoms than jogging bottoms, to be fair. But anyway, what I was going to say was, I would love to be, and I'm going to build somewhere, I'm going to build the company that will do this. But like, to be somewhere where the BDD definitions, the like given when then tests, are written by like the business instead of the developers. I've never been somewhere where the developers didn't just write them, you know? I think I've had input from the testers, but it's still been written by us, you know? Oh, that would be the dream. I'm listening to Formula One in my like ear as I write these tests, which I'll get onto. And I just got an advert so that you can book tours of Amazon fulfillment centers. Why? Why? Oh, that's the kind of like level of, that's like getting a tour of like North Korea or something, you know what I mean? Where they're like, oh look, it's not so bad here. How bizarre. It better be interesting though. Just to see what that's like. I wonder how many people take them up on that. They're running ads on Sky Sports. That can't be cheap, you know? Otherwise, I'm writing these tests and it's a pain in the ass because I'm like testing what happens when the saga's in certain states. I'm like not sure whether or not I should do it by publishing events. Like, do I manufacture the saga state by literally modifying the database, which I can do? Or do I publish the events that I'm supposed to publish? I feel like I should publish all the events. But it's a pain in the ass, because now what I need to do is I need to do pipeline updates are pushed out to existing test candidates. Which means that, like, the way that I'm kind of like trying to reuse all the steps. So I have a load of like, and I have published this event, and I have published that event. Loads of these steps, but they want, like, it's ever so slightly different, ever so slightly, if you have the pipeline first or you have the candidate first. And it's so faffy. What's good is I'm kind of like, I'm generating the steps. So I have like, so for example, test candidates are raised against test subjects with pipelines. So given I am expecting a new test candidate to be stored in the repository, that is, I don't like having that step, but it's a necessary evil because of the way the mocks work. If I had a real database, like an in-memory database, I wouldn't need that step. But because they're mocks, I need a step to set up the mock properly. And I'm expecting pipeline metadata to be updated. And I have published a repository linked event, and a pipeline created event, and there's and a that. But because you can reuse all the code, I have things like when I publish a candidate raised event, and I have published a candidate raised event, both of those two things call the same code. So it's kind of like, it looks more complicated than it is. There's only like really a step for each event, basically. But they're like past tense, future tense. You know what, crew? Making some sweet ass progress this morning. It kind of feels like a really long morning. Like it feels like, I don't know why, but it feels like I've been programming for hours. Like literally hours, but it's just the same time as normal. It's the same amount of time as normal. But it just feels like it must have been a long time because of the amount that I've done. I've basically got to the point now where I just have, well, the automation tests are failing. So they either are maybe, I haven't stepped through it, I just literally coded it all, ran it, knowing that the very, very last step I hadn't done anyway. So I knew it wasn't going to pass. But yeah, so I've got like a small issue to fix with the automation tests, and I have that very last step where I update the candidate saga to say, yo, this is now registered in the database. And then I'm done for this bit. So I've like properly flown through. This is a significant chunk of work to do, and I've done it in about a day, as in like about 6 hours. It will be, depending on how long it takes me to fix the automation tests, which is like good. That is good pace. That is some good timings. Obviously I've been doing nothing else But no, yeah, so it's taken me five hours, 6 hours, one day in total, as in like yesterday afternoon and today, this morning. That's fucking dope. I'm well chuffed with that. But it's lunchtime. My cold is not doing great, but we're getting there. Yeah, lunchtime. What should we do? Well, we'll watch TV while we're chilling down. Very, very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. I'm running my automation tests, and I've realised why they're not running properly. Why they're bombing out is because I'm going that route of putting messages on the bus in order to get them done. I could modify the data in the database to make sure it's in the state that I want it to be in, but instead I'm putting messages on the bus in order to make sure that the make sure that all of the events are doing basically what they're supposed to be doing. The problem is that, do you know how I use my system to swap out the Azure service bus with an in-memory implementation of that service bus? Turns out that doesn't have any retries configured. So if you put a message on the bus and it tries to take it off and it doesn't work, it'll error. It won't continually try and deliver it. So that's why I'm getting some failures, because effectively I'm trying to raise events against a Saga that doesn't exist yet. And it's failing because the Saga doesn't exist. It goes, "Hi, I've just received an event for a Saga that doesn't exist. Error." That's interesting, that, because it doesn't do that if you use Azure Service Bus. It holds it. It effectively goes, "Oh, that's for a Saga. I don't have the Saga yet. Effectively, I'll retry that in a bit." I don't remember it throwing errors, though. I seem to remember it, because I'm half relying on this. In this scenario where you have an existing pipeline, but I haven't yet created your candidate, I raise the candidate and the pipeline event more or less simultaneously. There's like a fraction of a second in it. And yeah, the problem is this is all asynchronous. So I've got only marginal control about the order of the events here. It means I'm going to have to put spin weights in to make sure each message has been consumed. That's a pain in the ass. Another very, very wet day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure about my walk. So, I'm learning stuff here, ladies and gentlemen. So, I'm using SpecFlow to write these BDD tests. And by the looks of it, SpecFlow, the way that its test runner works is it runs effectively all the givens ahead of time. So, well, not ahead of time, but it'll run them all. And if they're asynchronous, it won't wait for each one. So if you write given and, it will go execute, 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 and then do like a when all. And then that when all is the bit that it then starts waiting for everything. The problem is that I'm now kind of hitting the retry logic. So I have staggered retries. It is actually retrying. I'm mistaken on that one. But it's retrying using the real microservices configuration, which is exponential backoff. It doesn't try a lot quickly. It tries one and then it holds off a bit, then it goes again, then it goes again. And then that boxes me out of the time period. It's quite frustrating because it makes these tests a little bit more a little bit less, what's the word? It makes them a little bit less usable. Oh, maybe that, to be fair, I do have 3 steps that always happen in the same order. Because that's the order that they happen in. And I'm effectively doing them instantaneously in the same order. Maybe I could put those all behind a stepper instead of... Yeah, okay. Because what I don't want here is, I don't want these to be fragile. I want them to cover as much as they can do without being fragile. And the problem is that this at the moment isn't very thread safe. And I'm getting effectively different results for depending on what happens and in what order. And that is not what you want. That's absolute worst case scenario for a test. What time is it? Oh, I think it might be TO o'clock, boys. Let's go make a cup of tea and then we'll come back. And what I'm thinking about doing is basically these pipeline ones, of putting them in their own step, and then they can wait for each other to go through. And that is effectively the problem. What's annoying is, right, hang on. That thing I literally said earlier about reusing the code, which made sense and it made it all really cool. I'm gonna have to back it out. So the problem I'm having is my code is obviously developed in such a way where it doesn't care about the order that it's happening, but my tests do care. So because I'm reusing the code, I effectively have one line, two different methods that will trigger the same thing. I.e. like, when this event is raised, update all of this stuff. Or when this event is raised, because effectively there's like two flags. As soon as both flags are up, it doesn't matter what order they go up, but as soon as both flags are up, do something. It's really difficult to write a test with all this asynchronous shenanigans and all this threading issues, where you use the exact same code, but one of them is waiting for the other one in one scenario, and one of them's waiting for the other one in the other scenario. It's very, very finicky. I'm enjoying it, but what's annoying is it's one of those things where I now know because of the way the tests work that the code works, but I can't get the tests to work, and that's quite frustrating in general. The other problem I was having was based on the way I was doing the mocks. So the mocks were being set up ahead of time because it's not a real database. I'm using mocks, the thing I was talking about. I effectively, on one of them where it's creating it, it does two checks. So when you create it, make sure it doesn't exist. And then when you're trying to modify it, it checks it does exist. I've got to make a mock that does one in one scenario and the other in the other. So it like flips based on whether or not it's been created. And the way I was doing that was wrong because it was basically caching the value of return null. I was basically saying, hey, return this variable. Then I was updating that variable when the values changed, but it had already stored the value. And then was returning null rather than the updated value, which is annoying. But I got around that one. And now I've just got this threading issue, like I say. I feel like I've got an idea. I feel like doing what I said about grouping those tasks together, the pipeline-oriented setup tasks together. So effectively I changed the step from given I publish this, given I publish this, given I publish this, to given I have a setup pipeline. And then that test itself can then, within the step, I can then do waiting, basically, to make sure that things have happened in the right sequence. The problem is that in one scenario, I'm just going to have to reuse the steps. I'll just reuse the steps, it's fine. Okay, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, guys. Calm down. Effectively going to wrap, because of the way that the runner works is a bit different to how I expect it to be. I'm going to effectively wrap the steps in one larger step that is used in one scenario to check the stuff, but then I continue to use the original steps when I don't care about it. So it's like, yeah, it's one of them like weird quirks of automation testing that happens every now and again. So they're hard to explain, and they're hard to like. It's hard to wrap your head around how to fix it and when you should fix it, because in general, if you have to work hard to write a test, it's not a very good test. Like tests in general are supposed to be quite simple, and if you are working hard, I can't get you flat, sorry. If you're working hard to make it work, then in general that means it's quite flaky, and it means it's quite fragile and more complicated to understand in the future. As a general rule of thumb, if you're writing a test that's quite difficult to set up, you're either too far away. Oh, this is weird to say. You're either too far away or too close. If you're too close, you've got to like set up too much data and set up too many mocks. If you're too far away, then you have you're effectively trying to change too much. Oh, they're both basically the same thing. I don't fucking know. It's hard to explain. One scenario is if you've got a unit test that's too complicated because you've got to set up too much stuff, then you probably should use an integration test instead, because it will be more understandable. That being said, if you've got an integration test that sets up way too much stuff, maybe you should swap it for multiple unit tests. Does that make sense? Maybe. Fixed it, ladies and gentlemen. Fixed it. All I need to do now is make sure it actually works. and then I just need to do the pull requests. So I've just booted it up. I'm just going to hand crank my message, put it through my MassTransit test harness I made yesterday. Oh yeah. Well, I'm not going for my walk today. God damn, it's raining, ladies and gentlemen. So, ironically, I did actually go back and test it properly. So I didn't test it fully properly. I already had like half the data from previously, half set up in another microservice for this repository, and I need that to be in step anyway. So I was like, well, I'll sync that up. And at some point, I changed my mind on how having a valid, like when I generate your image, based on how valid you are. So whether or not you've got a valid pipeline or it's active. I previously said you had to be active and valid for me to generate the image internally. I've changed my mind since then and said that I will always generate the image, and then the state basically just gets repped through all the microservices, and then the microservice that cares will just stop working. Instead of effectively just not having the image there, it will just go, oh, the image isn't there. No, the image is there, but I'm deactivated. That way around it. Rather than saying, I'm deactivated, I'm not going to generate the image. So I changed my mind on that, high level, and then didn't actually change how the thing worked back there in a different microservice. So I'm just going back and making that changes now. But, like I say, it's raining out. I've had 2.5 hours of just sitting in front of my computer. So I'm thinking, going downstairs, I'm just going to have half an hour, chill out, rather than a walk. I'd normally consider risking it for a biscuit, but it's horrendously. It's like it just hammers it down. But yeah, so what I'm going to do, I'm changing the domain model a little bit in the other microservice to better suit what I want. And then I need to just update the tests in that service. So I've got to do some minor changes there, run it through again, and we'll be fine. But yeah, I need a wee, and I'm going to chill out for about half an hour and eat my Kit Kat. The problem with like not leaving the house is you have to just walk away from the computer sometimes, you know? You have to just be like, get the fuck out of the way, stop it, you know? I just ran upstairs to write something down quickly on my notepad, and then like thought, oh, I could just do it now. Step away. There we go, 11 hours later, both repositories PR'd, merged in, happy days. Tested it all the way through as well, so I know it's working, not just from the test harness. So we're good. Like I say, it took about 12 hours in total, which is about 2 full days, 5 hours a day, ish. So that's not bad considering how much there was there. But yeah, so now we've just got to do that again, but from the other microservices perspective, which is slightly different because, oh no, this will be stored on the same. This is one of them ones where it depends how you split it. It's either about the same size or it's a small one and then one slightly smaller than the same size. We'll be splitting up small and then bigger though because of the step that's next. But yes, I'm now getting the actual snapshots in. So the candidate versions. I've done everything else. So it's going good. But I'm calling it a day. It feels like it's been a really long day today. I think it's because I've literally just worked on one thing all day. It feels like a really long day. Laura's just watching a lecture. And I'm going to play Xbox, I think. I'm done for the day. But yeah, so tomorrow I'll work on some of that dev stuff and look at, what we're looking at? Oh, some non-dev stuff, blogs. Blogs is up there as a priority, and I need to generate some more emails for potential clients. That's what I'm going to be doing. I need to start differentiating. I feel like I've gotten over my own productivity bump, and now I can focus on a broader range of things. Having said that, we've got to make sure we've got to have a productive weekend as well, though. So we'll get there. Oh, I've got a right itchy shoulder. Just been watching The Circle. Before bed, and they do like this stupid live show now, and I literally remind me next time there's a live show I'll record it, even though I do like live tweeting it. It's one of the few programs I'll ever live tweet, but I'll record it and then I can fast forward through all of the live show bullshit that I don't care about and the adverts at once. Laura literally went to go get ready for bed. I paused it while she went to go get ready, came back, and then I sat and watched the adverts just so I could fast forward through more of the shitty live show. God damn it, mate. I like the circle because I like the concept of it. I like the whole idea of what it is, you know. And then they just ruin it by basically making it like Big Brother. Well, I couldn't give a fuck what these two minor Z-list celebrities say. Like, I really couldn't give a shit. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it is bedtime. So, I'm going to end my video here. Thanks very much for watching. We're going to enter the weekend on a new vlog. Normally I glue it on because it's normally boring. But if I've started the weekend, if I've started a video on a Saturday, it can't be boring. So I'll come back for that. It's going to be exciting as fuck. I'll catch you later.